All right, everybody, welcome to our side-by-side Sunday interview with Rexanne Williams. We are so excited to hear from Rexanne. And I've got a special little video presentation that I'm going to go ahead and share with you to start off. It's just a second, let me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. That was awesome. So fun to see all the pictures of you. All right, what would you like to tell us, Rexanne, to introduce yourself?
Well, I live on a 125-acre farm, and it's in the southeast corner of Virginia. If anybody knows where Virginia Beach is, I'm about 45 minutes south of that. I have been married soon to be 50 years next year.
Wow.
I have 8 children, 20 grandchildren, and soon to be the 3rd great grandchild will soon be arriving in the near future. I am a convert to the church. I had been married to my sweetheart for a little over a year. We had our oldest daughter had already been born. She was approaching her first birthday when the missionaries literally tracked us out. Just really, really quick on the conversion part is that the missionaries were in my neighborhood for an appointment that they already had, and the people that they were to teach a lesson were not at home. And so they had been knocking on a few doors, and this was when, people actually were at home at the time. And so they were getting no response and doors were being slammed. And so one of the elders said, let's just go sit on the corner and we will see when our people, our appointment shows up, and then we can just, go back to the house. And so the other sweet little elder said, no, let's go to one more house. Let's go to this one more house with the green shutters. And so the rest of the story is that was my house. And so when they came and asked if they could share a message with us, I told them my husband wasn't home and could they come back later that night. And so that is how we were found. So I have 3 sons that went on missions. And so I never ended, every single time I would close out a letter or an email or whatever, that was always my closing statement. Go to one more door.
You're a missionary. I love that. What a blessing.
You're a missionary
Were you genuinely interested in the message, or were you just being nice? What?
Oh, no. When we first heard it, the very first message, it was like, oh, you poor misguided boys. I mean, because I would ask them questions about, well, first of all, I couldn't believe there was a prophet named, Spencer W. Kimball. And I had never even heard that name. I thought, how can there be a prophet on the earth if I've never heard that name before? And then when I was asking about the golden plates and, well, where are they? And it's like the angel came and took them. I thought, well, isn't that a likely story? You poor boys, poor babies, but we literally, I'm gonna have to, someday I would love to tell you my conversion story because it's just amazing. Because the first time we ever went to church was my husband and I both took the discussions at the same time. So we were baptized on the same day. But the first time we entered an LDS church was at our baptism, because you didn't have to go to church before that. And the second day we went we were baptized on a Saturday. And the next day, Sunday, was fast and testimony meeting. So that was totally different from this girl that was raised in a very, very Southern Baptist church all her life with the fiery brimstone sermons, and to go to thing. But I would love to share that one day, because that it's just a crazy. And my husband and I have a talk that we give, because we have literally 13 miracles of how we got to the temple to be sealed a year later. So it's just
Oh,
it's miraculous.
that's
It's just the Lord's
beautiful.
hand. Yeah. So it's just crazy. So we are, converts to the church. Yeah. So just staying busy. We are very, very busy with the Richmond Temple that was dedicated soon to be a year ago. In May, it'll be a year. My husband is a sealer and I'm an ordnance worker, and we work as often as we can. Sometimes the minimum is 2 days a week, but we definitely try, to do 3 and 4. We just love being able to serve in the temple as often as we can. So that's where we spend a lot of our time, is in the temple. Lives are
Wow,
busy
that's
with
a
family.
lot of shifts. That's a lot. My dad is a temple worker, and 2 is like, oh, that's a lot
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah. So
um
we're busy, but
all right.
it's a great life.
So when did weight first become a problem for you? And when did you realize that you had an addiction to food? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I guess there's the typical like teenage, teenage years. You're thinking you're teenage.
Friends, even with the
You're
dreaded
thinking
time
you're
limit, I was able to uncover the
Hold on, just a second. I'm sorry. Let me oh, I apologize. Um Hold on just a second. Oh goodness. Okay, it's not letting me. Oh, there we go. Okay, you're not muted. You're not muted.
okay.
I
Okay.
apologize.
But typical teenage, thinking I was overweight, and I wasn't. And I remember when my first child was born, going for the 6-week after checkup and weighing 125 pounds and going back to my car after that, 6-week checkup, and just crying, thinking I was just so, horribly overweight and I would never, lose the weight. But as the babies were being born, there was extra pregnancy weight that I didn't lose. And so it kept accumulating. And I remember one time though, well, actually in my childhood, I grew up in a home where both my parents were alcoholics, but they were very functioning alcoholics, and that they didn't really drink except on the weekends. And so weekends were pretty hard, but on Sundays were just the most idyllic, family day that you could imagine, going to church, coming home. My mother was a phenomenal cook. And so we would have these amazing Sunday dinners, and she would prepare these desserts. And I can remember like that was in the era when, the Wonderful World of Disney show came on Sunday evenings, and there was some other, Bonanza. I mean, whatever shows there were, that was just classic TV back then. And we would sit there as a family and enjoy this TV and enjoy, this amazing, desserts or whatever my mother had prepared after this dinner. And I remember very early age associating food with normalcy and thinking, this is what a family looks like. This is the way a family is supposed to act. And this is the way that a family, conducts themselves, and what I consider normal. And so it was very easy that I transposed that feelings into food. Food became a great comfort for me. It was very soothing. It was just a truly an act of what I substituted for love, for that. So that was the beginning of my food relationship. Even though I wasn't gaining a lot of weight and becoming, overweight with that, but it was very easy to understand how I transferred misconstrued my thoughts about food at a very early age, and it continued on, and probably even to this day. But I can remember one time when my husband, when he was in school in college, he was also a swim team coach and an aquatic director. And one Saturday he was at a really big swim meet, and this is the time when I only had one child, and but I remember going to a Chinese restaurant and sitting there in this restaurant with this little baby in a little high chair right there, looking around and realizing that this was, in this, mid to late 70s. And so this was pretty out of the norm for women to go. This was an era when women really didn't go to restaurants by themselves. They didn't go to movie theaters by themselves. It was very, antiquated world back then, I should say. But anyway, I remember looking around thinking, this doesn't look right. You are here because you think you absolutely have to be eating. And I think it was a Chinese restaurant. And you think you have to be here to eat this, And I remember thinking, that's probably not where you need to be, feeling that you have to have this food right now. And you went to this measure to get it. And that was like my first indication of like, what measures are you willing to take and go through, and as the children became older, this was before ATM, before, debit cards, and always making sure, like when I would check out in the grocery store, to have extra money so that I could go through the drive-throughs, for fast food, and just, always feeling like I had, to go through the drive-throughs. So I do remember having, issues with food, pretty early on. The way I found BLE was I was at my son's house, and this is when he was going to school at BYU, and they were living in married student housing there at the Y, and I was sleeping in a little granddaughter's bunk bed, which was extremely uncomfortable for a grandmother, but I remember not being able to really sleep, so I had my laptop open, and I have no clue how Susan found my email and how she got. I don't know if you remember when she talked about before she launched BLE and when the book was coming out and so forth, she had to create that email list, and it had to have so many thousands of people. And like I said, I have no clue how I got on that list, but very, very, very grateful. And now I think about, I think the Lord was very much involved in it. But anyway, long story is that I was laying there in that bed that night, and I was just sitting there, couldn't sleep. So I just kept listening to those food freedom videos. And I just was so overcome with hearing what she was saying that I really remember just tears coming down my cheeks as I was sitting there listening to that, because I realized, oh my gosh, somebody finally gets me, I cannot believe. And then my first thought was like, where were you in my house? When were you with me? That I didn't even know you were around, because everything you're saying is exactly verbatim how I am and what I'm doing. And it's like, how did you know this? Of course I knew sugar wasn't good for you. Anybody knows that, especially in large quantities. But I didn't know you could be addicted to it. And that was what was the eye-opening moment for me, is to know that you could be so addicted to sugar and flour. I had, I wanted to lose this baby weight, that I'd been had with all these, these children. And, but I was absolutely the queen of buying every magazine that came out, when you're checking out the grocery store and there'd be a new diet on the front of the cover of the magazine. That was it. I was sure that was it. I just needed to buy this magazine and go home and follow this new great plan, and so I knew I'd been on just about all the, everything that was out there. I didn't do the shots. I never did that part, but every other diet, I had done. I look back on it now, Beth, and I know, like with Weight Watchers, I can't even tell you how many times I joined Weight Watchers. It's just countless number of times. But I think about that now, that I would have never, ever been successful, ever. It's kind of comical. I would weigh myself, and if I had a good week or something, I said, oh, you did good. You can buy one of these treats. They always had those boxes of
Weight Watchers.
Not my Weight Watcher treats that you could buy at the checkout, and I would buy one and say, oh yeah, you deserve this. You did really good this week. And then of course, this is all diet mentality. I was the queen of, and so it was like, I would leave the meeting thinking, okay, well, I don't have to weigh again till next week. And I've already weighed today. So today's a goner. I don't have to worry about today. So I can have this treat today, but I would like eat the whole box on the way home, the whole thing, like, it wasn't like there was an enormous thing. Sometimes they'd have 4 pieces. Sometimes they'd have 6. But I think about that now, of how I know that Weight Watchers, I would have never, ever been successful, because there was flour and sugar in those treats, so it would have never worked for me,
Like,
so
binge now, but I'll have time to get back down a little bit before next week.
Yeah. And I carried that diet mentality for, eons and eons, because it was always like, oh, I'll start this on Monday, or I'll start at the first of the month, on the new diet, or I'll start, the new year, all that. So that was, part of all that mentality, thinking of that. So, but I remember listening to the food freedom videos, and that is at the time when that boot camp was. If you listen to the thing today, she talked about it. It was $9.95, and I had no clue how I was going to do it, but I knew I had to. I was
$995. Yeah, $9.95, not a monthly
I wish it was $9.95. Oh heavens, yeah.
Yeah.
But but I knew I had to do it. I knew I had to. And so I managed to scrape it up, and get that money. And I was so grateful, that I had what I knew was the answer, that I'd finally, had found it. And I well, another part of this story is in 2003, my 19-year-old son took his own life, and my husband and I actually found him. And so the sheer horrific trauma, and all that went with that for, a very long time, was just, the worst experience any parent can have. But one of the things that that came of that is that I absolutely turned to food, and because I'd had food for, all those, decades and decades of my life, knowing that it was my safe place, it was my comforter, it was my friend, and there was also a time when my husband, after college, he was commissioned to be a naval officer. And so he was gone a lot. And so at night, after I would get those children to bed, I was very lonely, and be at home by at night by myself. And I would also turn to food, and because it was such a comfort. Well, I really turned to food after Daniel died. And just, I mean, it was so soothing and comforting and just everything you can think of what I was searching so desperately to fill, this hole that was never going to be filled. And there was also a part of me that I was sure I was going to die. I really was, because there was no way I thought it was humanly possible to live in that much pain and not die, and I mean, I'd heard stories about people dying of a broken heart or something, and I thought, yeah, it's possible, and I just really felt like I was going to truly die. So I gained 100 pounds very quickly after Daniel died, because of all the just the excessive amount of trying to fill this hole that was never going to be filled. And what I thought was going to do it for me was food, and it did not happen. So anyway, like I said, I got the money up and was able to do that boot camp, and I had a lot of success, and I began to lose. I began to understand what the brain was all about. It was also at the time, to talk about how old, this is back, how far back it was. This is when she also had the book on DVDs, and so these were, when cars used to have DVD players in them, I mean, CD players, excuse me, CDs. And I remember you got different points and different things that we did to help her get this book, up on the New York Times best, seller, and we were doing all these things. And so one of the things I thought about was, I'll buy the book on, on CDs, But I remember one time my husband, who travels a lot up to DC, I asked him, I said, look, would you mind listening to this, this week while you're going back and forth, to DC? And I said, only listen to the first part. I said, the second part of the book is all about the actual program, the food program. And I said, that doesn't, that won't pertain to what anything you need. But I'd like for you to listen to the first part, because it's the science, of why I'm doing this and what I'm doing, And so he came back in and handed me the box, that the book was in, the CDs, and he handed it to me. And I remember the look on his face was like, oh, babe, I get you now. I get you, And so I knew that he finally understood where I was coming from, too. So that was pretty reassuring. And so ever since then, well, even before all the other times, he's always been, such a support. But because he heard that and was able to understand where I was now coming from, it became a whole different support system for me, from him. So that was really, really, a huge, plus in my toolbox there that has helped immensely. But that, the thing that happened though with my bright line eating is I had a lot of success, and I was losing. And after the boot camp that I joined and became a bright lifer, it just kept on. And so one of the things that happened though is, before I got to my right size body, is I started to tweak the plan a little, and I became a little too complacent, because one of the things that was happening is, of course, there were lots and lots of people noticing that. I mean, when you lose 100 pounds, it's pretty easy to notice that, right? And so I was getting lots and lots of, compliments and comments, and I had to go buy all new clothes because nothing was fitting, and so I was buying new clothes, and it was just this euphoria that I was experiencing. But I also became pretty complacent with where I was, even though I wasn't in the right size body. And I was tweaking the plan, because I was using this thinking of like, well, if this is not a diet and this is a lifestyle, I'm going to have to do something that's going to work for me for the rest of my life. And which was a downfall, because I began to think, oh, well, I can tweak this just a little so that it can be more accommodating for what I think I want for the rest of my life. I began to experiment with recipes, buying recipe books, that were supposed to be, or they were, BLE compliant, foods and recipes and so forth. But I realized with my addiction that I could not go there. I mean, it was too hard to stay totally on plan.
Just
I was
the food
fortunate.
addiction.
Oh yeah. Oh,
right. The
gosh.
chatter was like immense.
Oh,
I
immense,
think you
terribly.
mentioned, yeah.
And I mean, when she talks about, food being too sexy, I know what that means. I truly know what she's talking about with that, and recipes that sound just like all the food that I used to eat all the time. They have the same titles, or have the same, things. It was just, oh yeah, it was really, really hard. So anyway, that was where I was for a long time. But I was very fortunate that when I would see that I was gaining, I would get back on plan. I mean, I know BLE works. I know it works. And I would get back on plan and I would get back down to where I was. And then I would get complacent again. And I would think, okay, that works. Let me try this, And so then that was the hard part, though. It's just staying with it and not being able to get there.
Well, you told me that you lost 100 pounds with Bright Line Eating.
Yes.
And then the scale just stopped moving and you had about 50 more pounds that you wanted to lose at that point, right?
Yeah.
So what happened at that point to kind of like, what did you do?
Once again, it's that diet mentality that I thought, okay, I am going, because you know how she always revs up, the reboot resume course at the, like usually she hits that hard in like December or November, December, so that you'll sign up, and then start the resume course, that first week in January. So of course my diet mentality is still playing. I'm not a BLE, or, I'm still playing the diet mentality stuff, even though I'm doing BLE, protocol. But anyway, so I'm there. I was like, okay, this is it. This was the end of 2023. Yeah, I think I was. So anyway, it's like, okay, I'm kicking off January 2020. I am going to do it. I'm going to do it. And but I remember, and it was December 22nd, Sunday, and I was driving home, and I just remember going, I just can't do this anymore. I cannot do this anymore. I am sick and tired of being so sick and tired. I'm either doing this or I'm not, And so on the way home, I had this very, very strong impression. It says, ask your husband for a blessing. And I went, like, what? I was like, ask your husband for a blessing, And so when I got home, my husband's always stays after, but anyway, he soon arrived after, and I asked him if he would do it. He said, well, of course, of course I will. And he says, but can you tell me what this is about? What it is? Well, I was filling him in a little bit. He said, okay. So, but in the blessing, I knew it was from God, because he knew BLE enough to know what the mechanics were, but he didn't know enough about what it does for me. He didn't know what I have invested in it, and what it had done for me in my life. But anyway, so in the blessing, he actually uses the words, it's like, I've already given you what you need to know. You know what to do. Do it. Just do it. You don't need any more, telling you what to do or not do. He says, I've already given you the gift. Now do it. And that hit me with such a force, like literally like a 2x4 upside my head. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? He's given me this gift. And I knew it, because I can remember distinctly, like I told you, laying in that bed crying when I heard the food freedom videos, because it was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need. And but that was a major, major, major turning point for me. Absolutely amazing, because that was when I realized, what am I doing? I am looking at the Lord himself and saying, no, thanks. I don't want what you have. I don't want to take what you're giving me, And so that is what I call December 26th. That blessing was my surrender date. And
so
then
let's go through a little timeline. I just want to make sure that everybody understands. So you heard the food freedom videos. That was it. When was that?
2017.
2017.
Yeah, that was at the very end, right when she.
And then you lost your 100 pounds. How long did it take you to lose 100 pounds?
Maybe a year and a half.
Okay. And then how long had it been that the scale hadn't moved at all, that you were in Bright Line Eating?
The scale it would move back and forth, but when it came to after I'd even surrendered is when it quit going completely. I mean, it would not budge at all. Nothing was happening there.
And this blessing,
yes, the blessing was in December 26th, and so I had,
Of last year?
yes, yes,
This was just
yeah,
last year. Okay. So,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, we're talking about about 6 years, a little over 6 years of kind of,
yes,
once you reach that 100-point-pound loss, but
yes, yes,
you're just kind of
yes,
wavering back and forth and not really losing
yeah,
anymore. And then you got the
yeah,
blessing in December. And then what happened?
yes. Well, then I was spot on. I was
You were
just, I mean,
surrendered.
because it was like, I'm
This is
not,
it.
yeah, because I thought, and then, it's like, okay. And I remember even there were a couple times, even before that, I would come up on my renewal of my Bright Line Eating membership. And it's like, well, do I join again? It's like, but Beth, I knew that this was the only thing that was going to work for me. It wasn't like, okay, if you don't join, what are you going to do? I mean, like, seriously, what else are you going to do if you don't do this? It's like, it was never an option that I wasn't going to join the membership because I know that this is the only thing for me. And then when you get the confirmation that God gave it to you, it's like, well, that's really stupid if you don't do it after he tells you that he's given it to you. So that was more confirmation. It's like, yeah, you don't have any options, so just do it. So I would continually, sign up again. But then what happened is I reached out. Um, I was talking and reaching out to one of my sweetheart friends that I love with all my heart is Bridget Leon. And so I was asking her some questions, and I knew that she had problems because one of the things that I was discovering was that I had some thyroid issues, and also it was discovered that I had Hashimoto's. But my primary care physician at the time was saying, "Well, it's no different. I give you the same drugs. I mean, it's the same prescription that you have. Whether it's hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, whatever. That doesn't change. Well, for some reason, I just didn't feel that was really kosher, that was right. I just thought there had to be more to it than that because I was reading a lot of different things. And so when I reached out to Bridget, and she was really insightful because she had some similar experiences, they needed some more information about Hashimoto's that I was looking for. But as she was working with me and we were realizing that the scale's not moving, she says, you know what, I think a functional medicine doctor would really help you, and so I said, I've been thinking about it. She said, yeah, I think you would really benefit greatly, from that. And so I did some research and found one that had pretty reputable reputation. She had become a really renowned surgeon out of Emory University out of Atlanta. And in her very early in her career, early 30s, poor thing came down with MS. And so she was not happy with the way the conventional Western medicine was, treating her. And she seemed to be deteriorating worse instead of better. And so she started really researching on her own and finding different avenues. And she literally pulled herself into complete, remission. And so when she did that, she realized, she thought, if I can help myself this much, there's got to be countless others that also need help. And so she gave up her surgical practice and became, functional medicine,
When you say
MD. And
functional
so that's
medical
how I
doctor,
found
what
her.
does that, yeah, what does that mean for people that may not be?
She is not so much about treating you after you're ill so much as she does all this preventive stuff. But when you do have ailments, she knows different avenues and different ways that were just astounding, of what.
So a mix of traditional Western medicine, but also
Yes,
some
yes.
alternative.
Yeah. Like she still writes prescriptions, and she still has
Yeah.
that, but she also uses, supplements, that are
Right.
not,
So kind of a mix
traditional.
between the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So I did the first consultation with her and thought, okay, that's exactly where I want to go, and so we did massive, massive beginning of lab work, and I couldn't believe, I think I started out with like 22 vials that had to be taken, and so that was just crazy. And then we do all these other things that she does with the oh gosh, we did stuff that was the adrenal glands, where they did all the saliva I mean, it's just, if you know anything about functional medicines and stuff, you look it up, there's just massive amounts of more research, I mean, more testing that they do with you than just going for a yearly physical. And it's quite astounding how, I mean, there's no rock unturned by the time they finish with you, and so after that, everything comes in. It takes weeks, for all these tests to come in. So then you schedule an appointment back with her. So I met with her, and that was the first time in my life that I have sat with a doctor for 90 minutes. In fact, she had a big, like a 3-ring binder that had like 70 something pages, and all of it was just all my test results. And so when she, when I came in her office, she said, do you mind if I come around and sit on this side of the desk with you. So it was like she came and like put almost knees to knees with me, and on her desk, we flipped open that book and she said, here's a pen because you're not going to remember all this. And she says, things that you are, think of, write it down. And I'll tell you some things that I want you to write down. But she spent 90 minutes. And when I walked out of there, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I've ever in my life spent even, 30 or 40 minutes with, a physician one-on-one, but she spent the entire 90 minutes going over every single thing with me. And the thing that was so encouraging is that she would tell me things that needed, that were, well, first of all, she said, some of your labs, the reports are so low that it almost didn't even register, and she said, and then there's other things that are so astronomically high that they're almost off the charts. And so as she says, you've got the broad spectrum, you go from one end to the other. She says, I'm here to tell you that you're broken, but you're fixable. And that's what she said maybe 2 more times while I was in there that 90 minutes. She said, I just want you to stay with me and keep, you're broken, but you are fixable if you'll just let me, work with you, And so,
you had that
so
on
that
your
was the
on your
beginning.
little presentation, right? That's kind of a little bit of a motto in your life now. You're broken, but fixable. But you are fixable.
Yeah. And so that was a huge, but it was amazing to see the different avenues that you think. And she told me, she says, I can tell you right now, she says, I know you're here for weight loss. That's what, because I put that on there. I said, I got to get this weight off. I got to get this off. Because she was asked, like, what are you here for? And when you do your initial consultation with her. And she says, I know you want to lose the weight and we're going to do that. But she said, I'm going to tell you right now, she says, with all these numbers that I'm looking at, with all these labs, you would have never lost an ounce. You would have never lost an ounce until I get all these systems back in alignment, So she said, and that's what we're going to do. She said, I don't want you to worry about the scales. I don't want you to worry about that. She says, because everything we're working on now is just getting everything back in alignment where it needs to be and get it. And then she says, and then you're going to be amazed at how, things. But I mean, I'd had severe problems like with waking up in the night. And I could go to sleep easy, but I couldn't stay asleep, And she said, well, that's your cortisol. She says it's waking you up because it's so messed up, and then some other things. And it was just constantly everything I would come up with, she had a rebuttal for me. I mean, it's everything. She said, yeah, that's what this is. And we're going to work on this, we're going to work on that. So I did have to, I'm still in the process of doing a lot of, supplements, but my sleep is unbelievable. I didn't even realize I had brain fog until I saw it start clearing. As a temple worker, a lot of you will know this very well, but there's a part in the temple where, as an ordinance worker, there's a part that in a particular ordinance that you do a lot of memory. It's a huge part that you can completely just, repeat back and, as you pronounce that ordinance to somebody. But I knew it. I mean, I had spent, a countless amount of time, and it got to the point where I wasn't trusting myself. And I was constantly like looking on the wall to make sure I was saying it, perfectly. But I knew it, and I couldn't figure out why I was, hesitating and questioning myself, or, double checking constantly, looking to see that I was saying it correctly. And I remember after being on this one particular supplement that she had told me this for, brain fog. But it was several, it's not overnight. None of these supplements are overnight. And that's the thing she had, really reiterate. She says, none of this is overnight. She says, we're talking at the very least, a 6-month program, so, but anyway, but I can remember one time in that ordinance, performing that, and I just got teary-eyed and I'm sure the little sweet sister thought, oh, she's so touched by the Spirit, which I am. I always am. But I was just so overcome with the Spirit because I knew I was back. I absolutely knew I was back. And those words just flowed like, it's smooth as silk. And I knew that I was back. And that was my first real indication of how much brain fog I had been so burdened with, that was lifting finally,
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that I'm seeing, a lot of things that are making huge adjustments to, and I mean, like another thing she was talking about, like with my Hashimoto's, she said my antibodies were so high. She says, I didn't even know they would even register this high. She says, this is a new number for even me, so it's like,
oh my gosh.
Okay. And that's why she says, I'm telling you would have never lost an ounce until we get this all down, And that was the other thing she told me. She says, if I were looking at your labs right now, she said, I would walk out this door and I would never, for the rest of my life, put any piece of gluten in my mouth ever again. And I said, well, I don't eat gluten because it's wheat. I don't have to worry about that, But yeah, so it's just so many things that even though you're following BLE and it's a healthy diet, a regimen, but still, if your systems are not where they need to be,
You're not
it
going to lose
has
the
to be.
weight and you're not going to feel
Yeah.
good, right? It's
Yeah, yeah. And the hormones, all three of the hormones had to be, I was on 3 hormones now. And that's not, she said, none of this is, for life, She said, of course, there'll be some vitamins or some things I'm going to recommend you stay for the rest of your life. But she says, all these supplements I'm giving you right now, they are not a life prescription,
Oh, that's
So
good.
yeah, yeah. So you say like, no, this is just something to, once you get lined up, it's really hard to knock it out if you stay, on course. So I said, yeah.
Yeah, eating healthy
Yeah.
with Bright Line Eating, hopefully
Yeah,
it'll keep
yeah,
you in
yeah.
good shape.
And it's really
So,
nice too that she's so reassuring because she doesn't have what we a lot of her patients that she works with them so hard before she even begins by getting them off sugar and flour. Well, she didn't have to do that with me, not if you're in. And so
right.
that was a huge, huge, part of my recovery too, is that like I didn't have to start with that. I'm already there,
Exactly.
And so yeah, so that was
So
very
you're just
significant.
starting this journey. I mean, it was in January, I think you said you had the test, and then
Yes.
February is when you started taking the
Yeah,
regimen,
the
the
supplement. Yes.
supplements and things.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yes.
you've got a few more months, but
Yeah.
to reach that 6 month. Let's shift focus for a second. Now you are
Okay.
going to be presenting a breakout session at the conference here coming up in June 21st and
Yes.
22nd.
Yes.
And the title of your breakout session is Count Your Many Blessings.
Correct.
And it's about journaling. So tell us a little
Yes.
bit about what to expect and how you came to
Oh, yes. This is my
presenting on
passion.
this.
Yeah, this is my passion in life. As I told you earlier, I'm a convert to the church. So one of the things that if you tell me to do something or you tell me that this is how you need to do something, I'm a great rule follower. I mean, always have been. So I will follow and do whatever you say. Well, at the very beginning of my conversion, after I joined the church, there was all this talk about keeping a journal, And so I thought, okay, I got to just start doing that. So I would start, but as a very young mother with little children, I found it difficult. I mean, it was not daily entries. It probably wasn't even weekly entries, but I would write sporadically. And I was always grateful that if I found the time, to do it. And I was trying to make a diligent, effort. But in where did I have it down? 1995, there was a book that came out. It was called Simple Abundance. This book really just took me by, I don't know how to describe why it changed my thinking so much, but in this book, she talks about how much gratitude does for you if you can recognize, gratitude in your life. And so she was talking about just start writing down things that you're grateful for, and just each night, just write down and you'll be amazed at what will happen in your life. So I thought, that is so interesting. I thought, well, I can do that because she was talking about, you don't have to spend a lot of time, because I would find myself writing this journal and then get so distracted because I would just keep writing pages and pages, and it would be way too time consuming for what a busy mom of all these little children had time to do. I mean, we all have seasons in our lives where we can and can't do things. Well, avid journal writing of, the events I was trying to keep up with, it was just not in the season of my life to do that. But I thought I could write down, journal entry. I mean, gratitude entries. And so that's how it began. Literally, I would start and write down like 3 things that I was grateful for. And so then it moved up to like, I thought, well, I can do 5, But what happened, Beth, is that I became keenly aware in a very, very short amount of time of all the goodness that was in my life and good things that were happening. And another thing that would happen is I became keenly aware that I needed to be observant. And I can remember one time I was at the mall and I had my youngest child. And in fact, he was a little guy because he was still in a stroller. And I, all that, unpacking a stroller, getting the diaper, all that stuff. It was just me and him. And so I was heading toward the big entry door of the mall. And there was a young man standing there at the door, and he saw me. And he actually stood there and waited. And he held the door for me so that I could come through with my stroller and this baby. And I really don't think he was more than probably 15 or 16 years old. And I remember just looking at him saying, thank you so much. Thank you. This is so helpful that you did this, And I said, you need to go home and tell your mom thanks. She is raising a really great son, he just lit up like a Christmas tree, And he goes, I think I will. And I said, well, I really appreciate you today. But I remember that moment. I think it was in the morning because all the kids were at school. And I thought, I'm going to write that down in my journal tonight, And that was early beginnings, that I had a young man that, I mean, he saw me I mean, it wasn't like, oh, here comes a lady right now, I better hold the door. He literally saw me in the parking lot and waited for me, so it just made a huge
Oh,
impact. So that was one of the first instances. I was like, okay, this is going in my journal tonight. I had another incident where I was washing dishes and I saw a squirrel sitting on my deck on the railing and just gnawing away at this little pine cone. And I thought, I better pay attention to this because this may be one of the 5 things I'm going to write tonight about being so grateful for nature. So I became acutely aware of all these different things in my life that was happening during the day because I thought, oh, this might be one of the 5. And so
so
then
just,
you get
yeah,
to where it's like, oh,
writing down your gratitudes every day causes
yes,
you to just really notice a lot of good things that you wouldn't have
absolutely.
noticed before that.
So it became where it was just so it heals you and it invigorates you when you see the blessings that are in your life every day, and when you realize what all the Lord is blessing you with constantly, day in and day out, that we just take for granted. I mean, who thinks about a 16-year-old kid holding the door open for you?
Right,
But
right.
I was keenly aware of that because I thought, wow, this might earn a place in my journal tonight, that this is a gratitude that I have. So
Yeah. So those
great.
of us that are going to be attending the conference in person or
Yes,
virtually,
yes.
what give us a little taste of what to expect from your.
Well, I've got some other stories that I'm going to share with what it's done for me and how it does. But also, what's interesting is that journal writing, well, especially gratitude journaling, has become very popular. Or very, lots of things. So what's made it fun and very interesting is there is always studies that are going on. I mean, I've got data now from some major institutions of learning where they have spent gazillions of dollars doing this so-called studies on gratitude. So I've got a lot of data that I just want to present to show how much gratitude does in your life, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I mean, just in crazy things that you don't even think about how it enhances your life. It's there. I mean, they've got data, and it's not like, oh, we just looked at 25 people. I mean, these tests and these studies are doing thousands of people that they're, actually keeping up with. So it makes it just that much more validating to the importance of keeping a gratitude journal. So I can't wait to share some of that of why it is. But the most important thing is, I mean, in 2000s, I was very blessed. Oh my gosh, it's one of my choicest things in life is that I was a early morning seminary teacher for 16 years. And so one of the things that I always try to get the children, my students to do was become because I'd been doing gratitude journaling for a while, I wanted them to also, bring it into their lives. And so in 2000, I wrote it down. 2007, President Eyring gave a general conference talk. And if you get a chance to look it up, the talk is called Oh, Remember, Oh, Remember. Okay. And in that talk, he talks about how, I think it was starting with he came home from work and his father-in-law was doing some kind of really big job in the backyard with some kind of plumbing thing or something, and how grateful he was. But he talks about how he keeps a journal of seeing the Lord's hands, the Lord's tender mercies, in his life every single day. And I thought, well, that's what I'm doing. I mean, when you do this gratitude, it's just the gifts that you're given every day, and you're just acknowledging the Lord that he gave it to you. And so I remember that, hearing that talk and loving it so much, thinking, okay, I can present this in a way to these students that can also help them understand the purpose of gratitude journal writing, and not just, Sister Williams standing up here saying, I've now been keeping a journal, for, 12 years or whatever it's been by now. But so I went out and bought all those black and white composition books, that you see all the time. And I put a little sticker on the front that just said, the Lord's tender mercies or something. And every morning before class, I had them write something the day before that they had seen the Lord's hand in their lives, just before we started class. Just, I kept the books out and just said, hey, look, just pick up your book before you sit down at your table or your, chair, and just write the one thing that you noticed yesterday. And by the time we finished, these kids were so amazed that they had this book that was just full of things that they would have never realized what it did. And these are teenagers. So when I saw the impact that it had even on young people, I thought, okay, there is something miraculous about what happens when you keep
Amazing.
these
Okay, I
journals.
have 3 more questions and we only have about 5 more minutes before
Okay.
we open it up to questions. So the first question I want to ask, and just in a nutshell, can you tell how journaling motivated or helped your healing after Daniel's death? Because I know that there was,
Definitely, because I 7 days after he died, I went and bought a brand new journal, an empty page journal, and I began to write this on the seventh day of all this emotions that I was having, and all this grief, and all this pinned up, just raw emotions. And I would just write and write. I mean, it wasn't like 5 things. I mean, it was just pages and pages and pages. And into my therapy with this amazing therapist that I finally found, I mentioned it to her, and she said, "Bring your journal in." And so I brought it in, and she, a long story short, is she said, "Rexanne, you've got to publish this." And I said, "Jody, you're out of your ever loving mind." I said, "This is my innermost, rawest grief." I said, "There's no way I'm putting this out here, you know." And so a couple more sessions would go, and she would bring it up again and again. And so finally, she said, "Can you help one mother? If you would help one mother, would you publish it?" And it was like, okay, take the dagger, drag it in my heart, you know, because that was what I was looking for after Daniel died. Because like I said, I was sure I was going to die. And I was searching the internet, I was searching bookstores everywhere, because if I could just find one mother that had lived through this, that would give me hope. And so I knew how desperately I wanted just one mother, you know. So you asked me to bring it. So I ended up taking my journal. It was 3 years, and I had it published. And so this is the book. It's called Searching for the New Normal. You'd ask me. I don't promote it. You know, I'm not one of those people that just go to promote it, but I hear stories of people needing it, and I give it to them.
I
So,
have read it,
just,
and you know, I don't have anybody close to me that has taken their life, but I have gifted it to several people that had deaths in their family, and it is amazing. And the tears were just rolling down my face when I was reading it. It was just absolutely beautiful. But your eternal perspective, you know, you hear that throughout as well, and you're just
yeah.
such a
Well, that's what I like
woman
to
of
tell
faith.
people when they get the book. You know, if you know somebody that needs it, I will gladly. You know, that's the reason. I don't think only royalties I make off the book. I just buy more books so I can give them away. But the first 3 chapters, as you said, you've read it. I mean, it's raw. It's really hard.
Oh
It's hard.
yeah.
And I tell them, I say, just stick through the first couple chapters. And that's what my publisher did. He had me put the book in chapters, because it's just daily entries, you know. But he says, for the ease of the reader, we're going to put it in chapters. But I said, just get through the first couple chapters, and then it gets much easier. And that's what it is. The book, I
It's
hope,
a
gives people a
beautiful,
lot of hope.
beautiful, yeah, I loved it. I just loved it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of have an idea of what to expect at the conference, and um you are currently one of the admins for the Brightest Eaters Facebook group, Brightest Eaters of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. What does that mean to you, and what does it entail?
Okay. Um, First of all, I was astonished and shocked. And like when you called and asked if I wanted to be, it's like, what the world? It's like, what on earth would I ever have to contribute? Why in the world are you asking me? Because I'd seen from the outside looking in, the things that this admin has done, and because I love this Facebook page. But I think it's one of my most treasured parts of my BLE journey is to be with this admin group. I mean, I love the women so immensely, so immensely. But the other thing that I wasn't surprised, but I love to tell other people about too, is that it is amazing the love that we have for everyone in this group, and how we care about them so much, and how we're concerned about them, how we're concerned about those that may be, not where they want to be in their journey. Maybe they're in the ditch. Maybe they can't, they're struggling to stay bright. But we're constantly always bouncing those comments and thoughts about that to you, how much we love every single person in this group, and how we're there for them, and how we can serve them to the best of our ability. And it's just, and I don't think anybody that's that immersed as we are, this group, realizes the magnitude of the love and the concern that we have for the group. It's astonishing to me just how much we care.
Yeah, and now your big role, something that you're kind of in charge of, is the spotlights. So tell us a little bit about that, and
okay,
what do you want us to know?
The spotlight is where we literally introduce someone that's in the brightest, group there, the Facebook group, and we just tell their journey, where their story, where they live, where they're from. I mean, just all it is. And one of the things that I'm discovering that I really would love to use this opportunity to clear up is that the spotlight is not, and let me emphasize, not with a capital N-O-T, is not about someone who has reached their happy, happy body, their thin body, whatever you want to call it, free body. It's not those that are there. They're not there, at maintenance or whatever. It's all this spotlighting is to introduce you to the group. That's what we want to do. You're in the group because, you're doing BLE, or at least you had joined at one time and you're interested in it, or you're thinking about joining, or you've heard about BLE. So it's not about those that are in maintenance. And if I anyway disclose that as being the only people that we spotlight, I am so sorry, because that has never been the intention of what the spotlight is. I will say that right now the well is dry. The well is dry. We have gone through I had several months ago had put out a request for you to volunteer to submit your name if you'd like to be spotlighted, or if you know somebody. We have now run through our names, so I'm going to be putting up a new request. Please, 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 don't hesitate to be, to let us get to know you. You just answer these 5 questions. I write it in the prose style for you. And all you're doing is just giving us the information so that we can get to know you and put a face with a name. And because we welcome you. And like we said, we love you. We're so glad you're here. And we just want the opportunity to get to know you and a little bit about you. We're learning fun things about people, really fun things.
I love the spotlight. I just look forward to it every week. I love getting to know.
Please don't think you have to be in maintenance and that you're lost all this weight and you're done, because that is not what it is. What it is to introduce yourself to us.
That's right. Wherever you are in your journey. We love it.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. My final question then.
Yes.
What would you tell somebody who is considering going on the Bright Line Eating journey, considering starting this way of life, or somebody who is not losing weight despite being on the journey? Maybe there's people out there like you that are struggling to see the scale move.
Yeah. Well, the first thing, if you're even thinking about joining or even thinking about starting BLE, I would say do it. Absolutely do it. You do not need to look anymore. You have found your answer. This is going to be the end of your search. It is an amazing group of people that we have in this group that will support you and love you and help you, in any way that we can. So that's another major, factor in this. But the main thing is that try it. I just try it. I think you'll be surprised. I know everybody. I mean, when I do the spotlight, that's always, it comes up, 99% of the time. It's like when they're first introduced, it's like, are you kidding me? Never sugar and flour again. I mean, that seems to be the big, like, oh, I couldn't do it. I had to get myself really geared up for that, But I think that if you just say for today, today I'm not going to eat the sugar and flour, because it is too overwhelming if you think I'm never going to eat sugar and flour again in my life. But today you can say I'm not going to eat it, So that would be my first thing, is if you're even thinking about it, come and join us. Come all the way in and just try it. If you're not losing, reach out to me, because I can definitely help you with that, because and like I said, though, if you've done BLE, there's not anything else out there. And that was my thing that just kept me going, is that, all right, quit. Then what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? What else is out there? I knew there was nothing else out there.
Weight Watchers
I knew that there was something. I knew that there was something. And staying in the community, and that's how I found Bridget, that led me to the functional medicine, I mean, what a gift that she's been to me, and so that has been an enormous thing. And I probably would have not found that, I'm sure I wouldn't have. If I'd been trying to do this on my own, I wouldn't have thought about all my 5 jillion million antibodies that are all in array, because I can't lose weight and all the hormones. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that as a problem. I would have probably thought I needed to keep cutting food away, and that would have never done it either, taking away food wasn't going to do this. I have to work on the body. So that's the other thing, is if you are in the ditch, reach out. Please, please just reach out to so many of us who have been there. We've done that. And we will take you by the hand and hold you and bring you back up on the road, and get you out of the ditch and help you. So just allow us to do that.
Post in the Brightest Eaters group. There's so many people.
Oh,
so many people that are, that are going to be able to help you. So definitely.
Yeah. And we already know that. That's what addiction is. Isolation. That's all it is. Come up, come up for air and get connection, because that's where you're going to get the healing.
Connection is the opposite of addiction, right? You
Absolutely.
guys heard that. I love it.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story. You are just full of so much wisdom and just beauty, and the spirit just flows from you. I love it. I just want to sit at your feet for like hours and hours and just hear
Oh
all
my
your
gosh, no.
experiences.
Can I add one more quick thing though? When we're at the brightest, for any of those that are here, if I have spotlighted you, please come up to me and introduce yourself. I mean, I have fallen so in love with
the
these people
conference.
that I have spotlighted. Oh my gosh. And it's just, I can't wait to actually put a face with a name or something. So you're going to know me probably quicker than I will find you. But yeah, if we're there at the conference together, please come up and introduce yourself. I would love to finally put names with faces, because I've so enjoyed this part of getting to do this spotlight. It has been such a joy in my life, such a joy.
Oh, and you do such a great job. I love the way you do them. They're great. Okay. So we have about 4 minutes. Does anybody have a question for Rexanne? Raise your hand if you would like me to unmute you. And I don't see, let me see. Oh, I don't know if, I think it pops up to the top. Is anybody raising their hand? Anybody have a question? Stacy or Bridget. Bridget has a question.
Well, I actually don't have a
Oh,
question.
my sweet Bridget.
I have a comment. That's what I
Comment.
would like to, yes. Rexanne, has just been, I've been delighted to just walk alongside you and witness your journey, your dedication, your willingness and openness just to persevere in your health journey has been phenomenal and admirable to witness. And just your story, your life story has been so moving and touching in the strength that you have had and all that you have given to others and the support that you have shown to others in because of all your experiences has truly been moving. It's just been such an honor and privilege to walk alongside you in your journey. And I'm so glad that you have found a functional practitioner who's phenomenal and is helping you in your health journey, just helping you immensely. So congratulations. And
Thank you. Thank
what
you.
a
And thank you for
Thank you,
helping me
Bridget.
find
Thank you
that
for all
person.
the help you're giving her and others as
Oh,
well.
yes. Oh, you have been a measure of, yeah, just an angel.
Karen. You have a
Well, I
comment?
don't have any questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't have any questions. Basically, I know where she's buried all the bodies, so I don't know.
He does. We say we can never part for friendship because
These are
we
best
know way too
friends.
much about each other. Yeah, we know way too much about each other.
But I stand with Bridget on what an influence and what an example Rexanne is. She saved me through the loss of my daughter and through my 12-step program. She's the one that threw the BLE book at me and said, this is it. This is the way to go. And I'll be forever grateful for not only being my mentor when it comes to my weight and my daughter loss, but just being a true friend. She's just true blue, and you couldn't ask for a better friend. And I really look up to her as an example, and just love her dearly.
Thank you. I love you
Karen.
too. Thank you.
Stacy.
Hardly any time left, but you mentioned the book Simple Abundance, that it had really impacted your life. I suspect, and you have written a book with the purpose of helping other people and impacting their lives. I am wondering if there are any other books that have influenced you, not necessarily about BLE, but not necessarily self-help books, but are there any other books other than scriptures that have?
Oh my gosh, I am a bookworm, so I would have to think about that, and I would definitely get back with you on that. But one of the ones that I'm doing right now, Stacey, that I kind of embracing right now. Have you heard of Boundaries of the Soul?
I have not.
Okay, that's
Fiona
a
Gibbons.
part. It's Boundaries of the Soul,
Who's it by?
but I'd have to look it up.
Is it the Givens?
It's by Allison Cook and Kimberly Miller.
Oh, okay.
Boundaries for Your Soul.
Yes. But the reason that I'm really just gravitating toward that is because it's all about parts work, but it's all on a Christian perspective, you know, or very spiritual
Oh,
level, you know, so it really is helping me understand the, you know, the natural man versus, you know, the spiritual authentic self, you know, so that's really been really interesting. And yeah, I'm enjoying that right now. It's really helping to help me work on these parts.
thank you.
It's a great question. Maybe you could get us a list of some of the books that you recommend. That would be fun.
Okay.
I could post it with, you
Yep.
know, the recording.
Yeah.
Post.
Yes. Thanks.
All right. Well, everybody, we want to thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
today. We just, oh, thanks a million, Rexanne, for all
Thank
you do
you.
in our community and
Thank
for
you.
sharing your story so openly with us. We just love
Yes,
you.
thank you. And if for any of you that even know someone that you'd like to recommend for Spotlight, I'll reach out to them if you can recommend them. You know, I'm gonna put the post up probably tonight or first thing in the morning. So in the comment section, just start listing me some people that you'd like for me to contact to see if I can,
Great.
they'll agree to be spotlighted.
And they can
And
be
if you haven't
new
been
in our
spotlighted,
community. It doesn't matter
yeah.
how
And
long they've been around, right?
yeah. Oh yeah. And even if you haven't been spotlighted, please say yes, please, please. And I will reach out to you as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. All right,
Thanks.
everybody have a great night.
Thank you.